SandStorm controller. In this training session, we'll see how this component of SandStorm can be used for creating business scenarios and then further simulating real-time business scenarios on test environments. To create a new scenario, click on create new scenario, and the controller provides two types of scenarios. One is a normal scenario, second is a goal oriented scenario. So goal oriented scenario would be covered in a separate session. Let's see how to create a normal scenario. Click OK. Give a name to the scenario and click OK. To this scenario, add a group. So after providing the group name, click OK. This group is used to add virtual users, which will generate the load on the application. Now in this group, let's add some virtual users. So click on add virtual user. Provide the number of virtual users and select a test case which we want to execute. Here you can supply the virtual user host name. Here you can specify the duration for which you want to execute this virtual user, which can be specified in number of iterations or can be specified for a duration of time. In the others tab, you can see you can insert delay between virtual users. Here you can select the multi-threading option, and also you can use the mechanism for emulating the caching. For debugging purposes, you can generate the HTML response, and here you can supply the test case, host and port, along with the iteration think time if your test is executing for multiple iterations. So this is the first level of configuration, which is the vUser configuration. The vUser host name which you supply over here is the host from where the virtual users would be generated. We'll see how this host is used and further how we can change this host. So for now, we select the defaults and click OK. So once you do that, you can see that 10 virtual users have got added into the group which we created. Now let's see some other configurations which we can perform on this scenario. So the second level of configuration is the group configuration. For that, just double click your group, and the group configuration window would open up. Here again, you can specify the host name, the test case name. In case there are any support files, you can specify over here the iterations or the duration. The third and the most commonly used configuration option is the scenario configuration. So you go to configure, click on scenario, and the scenario configuration window opens up. Here again, you can specify the number of iterations. So this setting will override all the other settings. You can specify the run criteria. So let's give a ramp up of one user every 10 seconds. Here you can either choose to ignore the think time or replay the think time as recorded. Here you can give the iteration think time. So let's give it a random value between 10 to 20 seconds. And here is the transaction think time. So let's give it 10 seconds. And in the advanced tab, you can have different options. you can either synchronize your controller and command launcher clocks by selecting this option. This option is useful when the controller is running on one machine and the load, which is the virtual users, are being spawned from some other machine. The controller does provide a real-time graphical view of the scenario progress. So the refresh rate for these graphs can be set over here. And here you can specify some transaction rules to abort a scenario if any of the transaction fails. You can also enable IP spoofing if your host machine from which the virtual users are being generated has multiple IP addresses. Once you are done with the configuration of your scenario, simply click OK. And you'll be asked that all the virtual users in the scenario will have this configuration. So you click yes, and all the previous settings will be overridden by the scenario configuration settings. Prior to execution of your scenario, you can always see the status of your virtual user host, whether the host is up and running. For that, you go to options and select host status. So as you select this, you can see the host name over here and the status is down. So with all the configuration done, we are good to load our scenario. To do that, click on load scenario button. And because we don't have any support class, select no option over here. And you can see the scenario starts getting loaded. On the right hand bottom corner, you can see a yellow icon, which is the SandStorm command launcher. So this SandStorm command launcher runs as a service on the host from where you are executing the virtual users, and this service governs the execution of virtual users. And at runtime, the command launcher collects all the results and sends those packets to the controller for further analysis. It's an important component of test case execution. Once the scenario is loaded, you can see the status getting changed to ready, and you're set to run the scenario. So you click on run scenario option and the scenario progress window will show up over here. So here you can see the progress of the scenario with the transaction, their status of pass or fail or not executed, along with the minimum, average and maximum response times. And here are the real-time status graphs which we discussed while configuring our scenarios. So here you can see how your test is getting executed. So while the scenario executes, you can keep an eye on it, how the scenario is progressing. And if any of the rules set by you is violated, then appropriate actions which selected while configuring the scenario would be taken. So once the scenario has got executed, you can see the status of the virtual users getting changed to executed and the reset scenario option getting enabled. So you can simply reset your scenario, and now you're all set to analyze the results. So this was about the SandStorm controller. Thank you very much.